Hello everybody, and welcome to the third installment of a Look Back at series. Today's episode is Southern Pacific Excursion Engines. You guys really liked this series, and this video was suggested by several viewers, so here it is. I will be listing off these engines in no particular order, and if there are any engines that I missed, please let me know in the comment section below. If there are enough, I will make a part 2. With the intro out of the way now, let's begin. Our first engine is Southern Pacific number 4460. 4460 is a GS6 class 484 Northern built by the Lima Locomotive Works in July of 1943. 4460, although a GS class Northern, never pulled the famous Coast Daylight and was never given the Daylight paint scheme or the side skirts for that matter. Instead, 4460 was assigned to freights or regular passenger duties along the SP system. In 1958, 4460 was used for Southern Pacific's Farewell to Steam excursion from Reno, Nevada to Oakland, California. After this excursion, 4460 never ran again and was donated to the Museum of Transportation in St. Louis, Missouri. Today, 4460 remains on display in the Museum of Transportation, and at the time of making this video, there are no plans to restore 4460 to operation. Our next engine is locomotive number 2467. 2467 was built in January of 1921 by the Baldwin Locomotive Works in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. During its career in revenue service, 2467 was assigned a large variety of passenger duties, ranging anywhere from long-distance trains like the Golden State Limited to normal commuter work in its later years of service. After being retired in 1956 from revenue service, 2467 was donated to the Harrison Railroad Park in Oakland, California for display. In 1990, work began to restore 2467 to operation for excursion service. After several years of hard work, 2467 finally steamed again, and made an appearance at Rail Fair 99 in Sacramento, California. After Rail Fair 99, 2467 went on to pull other smaller mainline excursions. As of today, 2467 is on static display at the California State Railroad Museum and is servable for operation. Now we move on to 2467's sister engine, 2472. 2472 was also built by the Baldwin Locomotive Works in January of 1921. Since 2472 and 2467 were sister engines, they had the exact same duties in revenue service, hauling passenger trains throughout the SP system. 2472 was retired from revenue service on February 7, 1957, and in 1959 was placed on static display in San Mateo County Fairgrounds. In 1976, a group of volunteers began restoration work on the 2472 to operation for excursion service. Throughout the 1990s and early 2000s, 2472 pulled many mainline excursions, appearing at NRHS conventions and other rail events as well. After being moved around a lot and an FRA-mandated rebuild, 2472 found its way on the Niles Canyon Railway in Suno, California. 2472 operated on the Niles Canyon Railway, being used for special occasions until September of 2015 when she made her last excursion, as the Golden State Railroad Museum, who owns 2472, was moving locations, and 2472 had to go with them. As of today, 2472 has yet to turn a wheel under her own power since that excursion in 2015, and it is unclear when it will operate again. Next up is locomotive number 2353. 2353 is a 460 10-wheeler built by the Baldwin Locomotive Works in 1912 for passenger and freight duties. 2353 was retired from Southern Pacific in January of 1957 and then placed on display at the Midwinter Fairgrounds in Imperial, California. In 1984, 2353 was donated to the Pacific Southwest Railway Museum in Campo, California, east of San Diego. Following a 10-year-long rebuild, 2353 operated again, pulling tourists along the former San Diego and Arizona tracks through Campo. After 5 short years of operation, it was discovered that 2353 had a large crack in its firebox and would require a replacement of its entire boiler if it wanted to operate again. As of today, 2353 is on display indoors at the Pacific Southwest Railway Museum in Campo. It will only operate again if sufficient funds are raised for a new boiler to be made. We now move on to an engine that's even smaller than 2353, number 1744. 1744 was built by the Baldwin Locomotive Works in 1901 for freight duties on the Southern Pacific. 1744 operated on Southern Pacific until it was retired on September 24, 1956. After retirement, 1744 eventually found itself operating on the Heber Valley Railway in Heber, Utah until 1990 when it was sold to the Fort Worth and Western Railroad. After being moved around in the New Orleans area for several years, 1744 eventually found itself on the San Luis and Rio Grande Railway, or Rio Grande Scenic Railway as some call it, in Alamosa, Colorado. 1744 operated on the Rio Grande Scenic for several years until staff was no longer willing to operate steam and put it in storage. As of today, the engine remains in storage in Alamosa and it is unsure if the engine will ever operate again. Our next engine is Southern Pacific number 745. 745 is a 282 Mikado built by Southern Pacific's Algiers shops in 1921. During its career in revenue service, 745 was assigned freight trains throughout the southern Louisiana area. The locomotive was retired in 1956 and then put on display in Audubon Park in New Orleans. The locomotive remained in the park until 1984 until it was moved for the expansion of the Audubon Zoo. The 745 was then placed in the ownership of the Louisiana Heritage Trust, who leased it out to the Louisiana Steam Train Association in the early 2000s. In 2001, the Louisiana Steam Train Association began restoration on the locomotive to operation for excursion service. In 2004, the restoration was complete, and 745 was then given the title of the Spirit of Louisiana. Throughout the rest of the early 2000s, 745 continued to haul several mainline excursions throughout the state of Louisiana. As of today, 745 continues to operate at special events throughout the New Orleans area. Our next engine is the newest addition to this list, Southern Pacific number 18. Number 18 is a narrow-gauge 460 built by the Baldwin Locomotive Works in December of 1911 for the Carson and Colorado Railway. Number 18 eventually joined the Southern Pacific roster in the early 1920s when the Southern Pacific bought the Carson and Colorado Railway. The locomotive was then retired in 1954 and given to the city of Independence, California. Towards the end of the early 2000s, a group of volunteers began restoration on number 18 to operation. These restoration efforts were completed in 2017, as number 18 is now fully operational. Although number 18 does not have a definitive line to run on, it did operate in September of 2017 at the Laws Railroad Museum in Laws, California. And now we move on to by far the most popular engine on this list. Southern Pacific number 4449. 4449 is a GS4 northern locomotive built by the Lima Locomotive Works on May 20th, 1941. For most of its career, 4449 was put on the head end of Southern Pacific's Pride and Joy, the Coast Daylight, which ran between San Francisco and Los Angeles, California. After a long career of hauling passenger trains and the occasional freight train, 4449 was eventually retired from Southern Pacific's roster in 1958. After retirement, 4449 was given to the city of Portland, Oregon, and placed on public display in Oaks Park. In 1974, 4449 was bought by Ross Rowland for his American Freedom Train project. 4449 then returned to operation in May of 1975 and was painted into a red, white, and blue American Freedom Train paint scheme to match its consist. Throughout 1975 and 1976, 4449 toured the country carrying major artifacts from the United States history in order to celebrate the bicentennial of the country. During the Freedom Train's tour of the country, 4449 and Reading T1 number 2101 would frequently trade off head-end duties, particularly in the eastern portion of the United States. Head-end duties were also given to Texas and Pacific 610 for the American Freedom Train's tour of Texas. After the Freedom Train ended, 4449 was returned to her daylight colors and began pulling mainline excursions throughout the northwestern United States. In 1981, 4449 pulled an excursion to Sacramento, California to celebrate the opening of the California State Railroad Museum. In 1989, 4449 and Union Pacific 844 made a side-by-side entrance to Los Angeles Union Passenger Terminal to celebrate the 50th anniversary of its opening. To end off the ceremonies, 44, 49, and 844 took advantage of Santa Fe's and Southern Pacific's parallel main lines and had a race through Cajon Pass. In 1991, 4449 returned to Sacramento for Railfare 91 and operated on double-headed excursions with Southern Pacific 2472 mentioned earlier. 4449 returned to Sacramento once again for Railfare 99, this time starring with Santa Fe number 3751. In the early 2000s, 4449 was put into a black and silver paint scheme in order to pull Burlington Northern Santa Fe's Employee Appreciation Excursion Specials. After the Employee Appreciation Excursion Specials ended, 4449 was put back into its American Freedom Train paint scheme to remember the lives that were lost in the September 11th terrorist attacks. In 2007, 4449 and Union Pacific 844 once again met up to do double headers throughout the Pacific Northwest area. In 2009, 4449 made the trip out to Owasso, Michigan, as it was invited to attend Train Festival 2009. While at Train Festival 2009, 4449 pulled several trips along the Steam Railroading Institute's tracks that were normally operated on by Pierre Marquette 1225. In 2013, 4449 went down for its FRA-mandated 15-year rebuild and returned to service in 2015. As of today, 4449 continues to operate in the Portland area on Holiday Express excursions. And that does it for a look back at Southern Pacific excursion engines. If I missed any engines, please let me know in the comments section below, along with any other constructive criticism that you might have about this video, or any other videos that I've done. If you enjoy this video and you want to see more, let me know what I should do next in the comment section below as well. That's all for this video. Thanks for watching.